The small town of Brookville was quiet as the night sky enveloped the area. The streets were deserted as most of the residents had gone to bed, but in one house sitting on the edge of town, a family was about to experience something that would terrify them for the rest of their lives. Mrs. Thompson was lying in bed, unable to sleep. She was staring at the ceiling when she heard a faint scratching sound coming from the window. She strained to hear where the noise was coming from, and it seemed like it was coming from the window. She decided to check it out and got out of bed to walk over to the window. Peering out, she saw nothing and shrugged, thinking it was probably just a tree branch brushing against the window. Mrs. Thompson went back to bed, but the scratching sound continued, growing louder and more insistent. Mrs. Thompson got up again to investigate, wondering what could be making that noise. She walked over to the window and saw a man standing outside, his face pressed against the glass, staring at her with cold, dead eyes and scratching at the window with his fingernails. Mrs. Thompson screamed and stumbled back, falling onto the bed. Her husband woke up, asking her what was wrong. "There's someone outside the window!" she cried. Her husband jumped out of bed and ran to the window, but the man was gone. The couple searched the yard, but they didn't find anyone. The next day, Mrs. Thompson received a package in the mail. Inside was a note that read, "I'm always watching you." She felt a cold chill run down her spine, and she knew that they were in danger. Over the next few weeks, strange things began to happen. The Thompsons' daughter, Caroline, would come home from school and find her room in disarray. Toys would be scattered all over the floor, and her clothes would be torn and strewn about. One night, the Thompsons woke up to find their daughter's bed empty. They searched the house, but she was nowhere to be found. The police were called, and an Amber Alert was issued, but there was no sign of Caroline. Weeks turned into months, and the Thompsons eventually moved out of their house in Brookville. But the memory of that terrifying night stayed with them forever. Years later, a group of hikers found a shallow grave in a nearby forest. Inside was the decomposed body of a young girl, her clothes torn and her body battered. It was Caroline. The police investigated, but they never found the person responsible for her abduction and murder. The Thompsons were left to wonder who could have done such a thing, and why. The memory of that night would haunt them forever, and they could never rest easy knowing that the killer was still out there.